Hey everybody, just want to get my thoughts out of the Packers 49ers matchup yesterday, which I was very, very lucky to be able to attend. Shout out and big thank you to my brother and a couple of his buddies who were willing to take me along for the ride. And what an exciting game it was for the Green Bay Packers as they take down and absolutely dominate the San Francisco 49ers 38-10 in the hallowed ground of Lambeau Field. We will start, of course, as always, with the Green Bay Packers offense. Jordan Love, he was 12 of 23 for 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That snaps I believe it was a 7 or 8 game streak where he had thrown an interception or more. So he finally ends that streak. Couple passes he had yesterday weren't pretty, but luckily they weren't intercepted. But he did make a couple better decisions, throwing the ball, throwing it away. So a little bit of progress for Jordan, but like I said, a couple passes he was kind of lucky they weren't intercepted. Then we'll get to rushing, and the player of the game by far, Josh Jacobs. 26 rushing attempts, 106 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 3 touchdowns, a big hat trick yesterday. Josh Jacobs continues to make his presence known, continues to make one of the biggest differences, in my opinion, for this Packers offense all season long. I mean, he's been doing it all season. He also forced, I think it was 20 missed tackles. I mean, that's insane. That's insane. He would get the ball and he just plows forward and he just doesn't stop. He has been such a asset to this team, such a leader for this team, and I'm so happy he's a Packer. He really by himself pretty much defeated the 49ers today. If we look at receiving, the leading receiver was Romeo Doubs. He had 3 receptions for 54 yards, did exit the game, I believe it was late third quarter, with a concussion, so hopefully he'll be okay. His status, of course, for Thursday is kind of up in the air. In my opinion, I don't think he plays. But we'll see. Of course, the NFL lately has been taking concussion protocol very, very seriously, which is good. I don't see Romeo playing on Thursday night. Also, other receivers. Actually, before I get to receivers, I forgot to mention Manuel Wilson carried the ball for 41 yards, and Chris Brooks also carried the ball for 11 yards. 9 attempts for Wilson, 4 for Brooks. This was all late game stuff when the Packers were already up 21 points. So they're getting a little bit of work, trying to get them moving around the offense. Back to the receiving. Tucker Kraft macaroni and cheese, 2 receptions, 26 yards and a touchdown. He had the first touchdown of the game, where it looked like he could have been down like 10 yards before the end zone, but he plows right through and gets ready in the end zone. He's another asset where I believe he probably keeps the tight end 1 job when Musgrave comes back. I think he's earned it, and I know that Musgrave is hurt right now, and we'll probably have to see how Luke plays once he comes back. But I think Tucker has really came into that role and made such a huge impact. Malik Heath, also 2 receptions for 15 yards and a touchdown. Really happy to see Malik get in the end zone. It was late in the game, corner of the end zone, putting the Packers up 38-10. But it is great to see Malik get some action and get in the end zone. Love to see it. Dontavian Wicks, only 1 reception today, but it was a big one. It was a big 25-yard gain over the middle, late fourth quarter, to kind of pretty much put the dagger in the 49ers. Jayden Reed, I believe he had 2 or 3 receptions. Jayden Reed really, not being as involved as I'd like to see, and not only because he's on my fantasy team, but if anybody who knows me knows that I love Jaden Reed. I think he's spectacular. I say it every weekend. He's a superstar. He hasn't really been involved lately, and that could be scheme wise. Maybe it's just not working out. But I'd like to see him involved more because I think when he's involved more, it helps the offense. But granted, the Packers, as it seems every week, a new player, a new wide receiver or a tight end or running back, it's every week because somebody new is making the biggest impact. This week it was Josh Jacobs. Last week Christian Watson was going off. So it's week by week, which is kind of the good thing about the depth that the Green Bay Packers have on offense, is they have these players that can go off any week. We don't necessarily have a wide receiver one, because one week Romeo could go crazy, then another week Christian goes crazy, then Wicks, then Reed. It's really a flip of the coin, and I love it. I love it. You never know who's gonna. And it makes it difficult for opposing teams to not know who exactly to really build the plan around, because you don't know who's going to go off. So I think that's a great asset for the Packers. Christian Watson, he had a couple receptions, nice hurdle. Not as cool as Saquon's last week, but pretty good hurdle. He had one pass where he could have had a touchdown, but it was right in his hands, and he just dropped it, and brought me back to his first ever play as a Packer against the Minnesota Vikings in Rodgers last year. It was the first play of the game. He had the ball all the way down the field. He was wide open and just dropped it. Takes me back there. So hopefully he could really start to get a handle on it. Make sure he comes down with balls like that, because that was, I mean, that could have, it would have, the game was already won at that point, but that would have just put the dagger in a little bit sooner. So I'd like to see Christian be a little bit more consistent with catching the ball. I know Romeo had a big drop today. I believe either Reed or Wicks also did. I don't entirely remember. But anyway, enough with the offense. Let's get to the defense, who were absolutely stellar today, forcing 3 turnovers. Xavier McKinney, his 7th interception of the season. And he continues to be my pick for the Defensive Player of the Year. Him and Jacobs are probably 2 of the best free agency signings since, dare I say, Charles Woodson. I'm not kidding. That's my opinion. You may think I'm wrong, but that's my opinion. So he had a big interception. Lucas Van Ness getting a forced fumble. Keyshawn Nixon getting a forced fumble. Those were recovered by Kenny Clark had one, and Carl Brooks, who I'm ready to lay down my life for already because he blocked that kick against Chicago last week. But I'm willing to do it again because another big fumble recovery. And then, of course, Lucas Van Ness also getting credited with that sack, was a strip sack. And then Rashawn Gary getting a sack. Good to see him. Getting the quarterback, but he also had a lot of good pressure today. The Packers really brought good pressure today. They really did. Gary, Clark, Quay, everybody did a very, very good job of really making Brandon Allen uncomfortable. We'll look at the Packers were 6 of 13 on third down. 1 and 2 on fourth down, and the red zone efficiency 5 for 5. That was something that we complained about as Packer fans last week against Chicago, and they were 5 for 5 today in red zone efficiency, which is stellar. That's great. That's what the Packers need. Penalties, they weren't that bad. They had 5 penalties for 40 yards. Couple offsides, false starts. It's got to clean it up, but luckily for them, it didn't harm them too much. Now, let's get to the 49ers. Now, I know the 49ers were banged up, and that's an excuse that Niners fans are using, and the Niners are using. Of course, they were without Brock Purdy, Nick Bosa, Trent Williams. But, like Keyshawn Nixon said, they're all professionals. This is the NFL. The Green Bay Packers won how many games without Jordan Love, their starting quarterback? And they won games without Christian. They won games without Romeo. They won games without starting players. So we're not going to use that here. We're not going to do that here. We're not going to do that. You're all professionals. You're all elite athletes. You can win a football game. Okay, it's not just because Purdy's out or Bosa's out or Williams is out. No, you still had CMC. You still had Debo. You still had George Kittle. You still had Warner was still out there. The Niners still had elite players out there. They just couldn't do anything with them because the Packers defense was doing such a good job. So we'll look at the Niners numbers quick. Brandon Allen, his first start, I believe, in 2 or 3 years. I mean, he wasn't horrible. He was 17 for 29, 199 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and he had 1 fumble. Not horrible. Not horrible. This is the biggest thing here. CMC had 11 rushing attempts for 31 yards. The Green Bay Packers held CMC to 31 yards. That's incredible. That's incredible. That's great. CMC is probably one of the best, talent-wise, one of the best running backs in the NFL, without a doubt. So for them to hold CMC to 31 yards is fantastic. George Kittle was their leading receiver, 6 receptions, 82 yards. He did have that touchdown in the Niners' only touchdown in the second quarter. Kind of a back in the end zone, not really a toe tapper, but it was a good catch. George Kittle's a good tight end, so he did have some good catches today. Luckily, he didn't make the Packers pay really too much. Debo was limited to 1 reception for 21 yards. He was targeted 4 times. 1 reception. He also had a kickoff return, a punt return that got all the way up to like the 10-yard line. Thank God it was brought back by a penalty because that was almost disaster for the Packers. And then on the defense, the really only big spot was Leonard Floyd. Had 2 sacks. That's it. That's the stats for the 49ers. That's it. The Packers did a very, very good job of holding the Niners offense, making their defense pay. And the Niners shot themselves in the foot a lot. They shot themselves in the foot. They had 3 turnovers, 5 if you count the two turnover on downs. But they fumbled the ball more than that. They recovered like 3 of them. So they were slippery with the ball. They seemed uncomfortable the whole time. You knew that they were missing Purdy, Bosa, Williams. I get it. They were 3 for 10 on third. Not good. 0 for 2 on fourth. Also not good. Not good at all. They had 9 penalties for 77 yards. That's brutal. That's brutal. That doesn't help. That doesn't help their cause at all. So a banged up Niners team gets rocked in Lambeau as they should. I don't care if they were beat up or not. It was sweet, sweet vengeance for the Green Bay Packers. We know the Niners have had the Packers a number, especially in the playoffs over the past couple of years. To see them get walloped in Lambeau in person was fantastic. I loved every second of it. It was wonderful. It was amazing. The experience at Lambeau it's unbelievable. Every time I go into Lambeau, it's like the very first time. It really, really, really is, and I love it. Also, this was the Packers' biggest win against the Niners ever, 28 points. So that's good. That's good. Moving ahead for the Niners, they are 5-6. They're at the bottom of the NFC West. So, and I believe they have Buffalo next week. So it's not looking good for them. And that's too bad. That's too bad for them. Fuck the 49ers. The Packers, moving ahead, they are now 8-3 and still third in the division because the Bears couldn't get the job done against Minnesota because they're a garbage franchise. And the Lions, of course, won again. They're 10-1. So, Packers 8-3, keeping up with the division as much as they can right now. 8-3. Their next game, quick turnaround, Thanksgiving in Lambeau Field against the Miami Dolphins. I will also be at that game. I got tickets a while back. I'm going to be taking my wife to her very first Packer game. I'm sure she is excited. I think she is. I'm excited to go. So hopefully it'll be another win. Definitely a win the Packers need. The Dolphins are heating up, so it won't be an easy matchup. But it's supposed to be cold, so hopefully that'll help. But I'll get out of here. The Green Bay Packers again, absolutely crushing the 49ers last night at Lambeau Field. Love to see it. 38-10. Great game. Thanks for watching. Go Pack Go.